Dr. Ethan Hayes froze behind the polished oak desk of his downtown Seattle office, the afternoon sun pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows and turning the room into a golden aquarium. Robert Klein, 6'4" construction foreman with calloused knuckles and a faded Marine tattoo, stood panting, his chair tipped backward on the carpet. The man's face had gone from purple rage to chalk-white shock in a single heartbeat. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs, but his voice stayed steady, the same calm he had trained for 15 years. "Robert, sit down. Breathe with me. In for 4, hold out for 6. He didn't reach for the panic button under the desk. Not yet. Robert's massive shoulders sagged. The fist that had been aimed at Ethan's face opened, fingers trembling, and the man dropped back into the chair like a felled tree. Tears, actual tears, cut clean tracks through the dust on his cheeks. "My boy's like you," Robert choked out. "I thought if I came here, I could fix him. But you're not supposed to be the one who understands." The words landed harder than any punch. Ethan glanced at the small silver-framed photo on the corner of his desk. Marcus and him on a ferry, wind whipping their hair, laughing like the world couldn't touch them. He had forgotten to turn it face down before this new patient walked in. One careless detail, and the session had detonated. Robert wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "I called you a deviant. Jesus, document. I'm a monster." Ethan let the silence stretch just long enough for the truth to settle. Outside, ferries honked on Elliott Bay. Inside, the air felt suddenly lighter. He slid a box of tissues across the desk. "Tell me about your son, Robert. Start from the beginning. No judgment. That's what I'm here for." As Robert spoke, halting, ashamed, furious at himself, Ethan felt the familiar ache bloom behind his sternum. He had heard this story 1,000 times. The father who loved his child but hated the idea of him. Yet hearing it now, with his own hidden life suddenly exposed, felt different. Personal. Dangerous. By the time the 50-minute hour ended, Robert Klein had cried more in one session than he had in the last 20 years. He left with a follow-up card clutched in his fist and a promise to bring his son next time, if Ethan would see them together. Ethan locked the door, leaned against it, and exhaled until his shoulders loosened. His phone buzzed. "Marcus, dinner at our place? Miss your face." Ethan smiled despite the adrenaline still buzzing in his veins. He typed back, "Need you tonight. Rough day." Then he stared at the photo on his desk and wondered how long he could keep pretending his own story didn't matter. That night in their Capitol Hill apartment, Marcus greeted him with a glass of Pinot and a kiss that tasted like home. Ethan told him everything, the lunge, the slur, the sudden breakdown. Marcus listened without interrupting, then pulled him onto the couch. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Ethan said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Just a hit too close." Marcus traced the line of Ethan's jaw where the fist had almost landed. "You're the strongest man I know, but you don't have to carry every wounded father in Seattle alone." Ethan closed his eyes and let himself be held. Tomorrow he would see Robert again. Tomorrow he would decide whether to keep that photo turned toward the wall or let the world see who he really was. For the first time in years, the choice felt impossible and absolutely necessary. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the office 2 hours early, the city still wrapped in soft gray fog. He straightened the photo of Marcus so it faced outward, then immediately second-guessed himself and angled it slightly away again. He had grown up in a small Ohio town where different meant you kept your head down or you left. College in Chicago had been his first taste of freedom. Late-night talks in the dorm with his roommate Tyler, the boy who taught him that love didn't have to be a secret. Tyler's face flashed behind Ethan's eyes. Messy blonde hair, crooked smile, the way he used to steal Ethan's hoodies. They lasted 2 beautiful years until Tyler's parents found out and shipped him to a conversion camp. Ethan never saw him again. That loss had carved the path straight into psychology, straight into the vow that no kid would ever feel that alone if he could help it. His phone lit up with a text from his sister back in Ohio. "Mom's asking about you again. Says it's been too long since you visited." Ethan stared at the message until the screen dimmed. His mother still sent birthday cards addressed to "our son" without ever saying the word gay. His father hadn't spoken to him since the day Ethan came out at 22. Some prejudices, he knew, were generational mountains. Robert arrived exactly on time, eyes red-rimmed, but steadier. Behind him walked a lanky 17-year-old with dyed black hair and a nervous half-smile. Liam. The boy glanced at the photo on Ethan's desk, and his shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Doc," Robert said, voice rough, "this is my son. Liam, this is the man who listened." They sat. Liam spoke first, words tumbling out like they had been bottled for years. The bullying at school, the prayers at youth group, the night he almost didn't wake up. Robert listened without interrupting, fists clenched on his knees. When Liam finished, the room was quiet except for the soft tick of the wall clock. Robert cleared his throat. "I told him he was broken. I told him God hated him. I was wrong." His voice cracked. "I was so damn wrong." Ethan guided them through the hard parts. Forgiveness that couldn't be rushed, boundaries that had to be rebuilt. By the end of the hour, Liam was crying quietly, and Robert had an arm around his son's shoulders for the first time in years. After they left, Ethan sat alone and felt something shift inside his chest. He had spent his career fixing other people's families while keeping his own at arm's length. Marcus wanted to meet his sister, wanted to visit Ohio together, wanted the world to know they were building a life. Ethan had always said soon. He picked up the phone and dialed his sister. "Hey, Becca, tell Mom I'm bringing someone home for Thanksgiving. His name is Marcus. He's my partner." The line went silent for 3 full seconds. Then Becca laughed, soft and relieved. "It's about time, little brother." Ethan hung up feeling lighter than he had in months. But the lightness carried weight. Robert's story wasn't over, and neither was his own. Prejudice didn't vanish with one good cry. It lingered in boardrooms, in family group chats, in the quiet fear that a single exposed photo could still cost him everything he had built. 2 weeks later, the rumor mill at the clinic started turning. Someone had seen Robert Klein storm out of Ethan's office that first day and heard the word deviant echo down the hallway. Whispers followed Ethan to the staff lounge. "Is Hayes you know?" Colleagues who had once clapped him on the back now avoided eye contact. His supervisor, Dr. Patel, pulled him aside after rounds. Ethics board might get a formal complaint. Just a heads up. Ethan drove home through pouring rain, wipers slapping rhythmically, and found Marcus waiting with takeout tie and a playlist of their favorite songs. Over Pad Key Mao, Ethan laid it out. The whispers, the possible complaint, the choice he now faced, stay quiet and protect his license or step forward and risk it all. Marcus set his chopsticks down. "I love you, but I'm tired of being your secret. If they fire you for being gay, we'll fight it. Together." That night, they lay tangled in bed, city lights painting stripes across the ceiling. Ethan traced circles on Marcus's shoulder and whispered the story he had never told anyone. The night Tyler disappeared, the months Ethan spent convinced he deserved the same fate, the day he decided to become the adult he had needed back then. Marcus listened, kissed his forehead, and said, "Then be that adult for yourself now." The next morning, Ethan walked into the clinic wearing the same charcoal suit, but with a small rainbow pin on his lapel, subtle, but impossible to miss under the fluorescent lights. He left a photo of Marcus facing the room. When Robert and Liam arrived for their 4th session, Liam noticed immediately and grinned like he had won the lottery. Robert looked exhausted but determined. The guys at the site found out about Liam. A couple of them stopped talking to me. One called me weak. He rubbed his jaw. I almost swung on him. Then I remembered what you said. Anger is just fear wearing a hard hat. So I told him the truth. My son is gay, and I'm damn proud of him. The pride in Robert's voice cracked something open in Ethan. For the first time, he saw his own reflection in the man across the desk. Not as a patient, but as a mirror. Both of them had spent years armored in silence. Both were learning how to lay the armor down. After the session, Ethan stepped into the hallway and found Dr. Patel waiting. Ethics board called. Preliminary review. You're being asked to explain the deviant allegation. Patel's eyes flicked to the rainbow pin. You don't have to hide anything, Ethan. Not anymore. Ethan nodded once, steady. I won't. That evening, he and Marcus walked along the waterfront, hands linked openly for the first time in public. The city lights shimmered on the water like scattered stars. Marcus squeezed his fingers. Whatever happens with the board, we've got this. Ethan believed him. But deep down, he knew the real test wasn't the board. The real test was the plane ticket to Ohio he had just bought for Thanksgiving, and the conversation he still owed his parents. Thanksgiving in Ohio arrived wrapped in cold wind and the scent of his mother's sage stuffing. Ethan rented a car at the Columbus airport and drove the familiar 2 hours north, Marcus in the passenger seat looking unfairly calm. They might not even open the door, Ethan warned. Marcus just smiled. Then we'll have turkey at the motel. Still thankful. The farmhouse looked smaller than Ethan remembered. His mother opened the door before he could knock, eyes widening at Marcus's hand in Ethan's. She hugged them both, tight, trembling, and whispered, "I prayed for this day." His father stood in the hallway, arms crossed, jaw tight. No hug, just a curt nod. Dinner's ready. The meal was quiet except for Becca's determined chatter. Halfway through the pumpkin pie, Ethan set his fork down. "Dad, I need you to hear this. Marcus isn't a phase. He's the man I'm going to marry someday. If you can't accept that, I understand. But I'm done pretending." His father stared at the tablecloth for a long minute. Then he spoke, voice rough. "I spent 20 years angry at a son I thought I lost. Turns out I was the one who got lost." He looked up, eyes wet. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try." Later, on the back porch under a sky full of stars, Marcus slipped an arm around Ethan's waist. That was brave. Ethan leaned into him. It was necessary. Back in Seattle, the board hearing loomed. Ethan prepared a statement that laid everything bare. His orientation, his relationship, the photo on his desk, the life he refused to hide. Robert Klein showed up unannounced at the clinic the day before the hearing, Liam beside him. "We wrote letters," Robert said, handing over a thick envelope. "Every guy on my crew signed one. Said you saved my family." The hearing room smelled of stale coffee and nerves. Ethan stood in front of 5 stern faces and read his statement without flinching. When he finished, the board chair removed her glasses. "Dr. Hayes, your work with the Klein family speaks louder than any rumor. Case dismissed." Outside in the hallway, Robert and Liam waited. Robert pulled Ethan into a bear hug that smelled of sawdust and Old Spice. "You fixed what I broke. Least I could do was return the favor." That night, Ethan and Marcus celebrated with cheap champagne on their tiny balcony. Marcus dropped to one knee among the string lights. "Marry me, Ethan. Not because the world finally said it's okay. Because we already know it is." Ethan's answer was a kiss that tasted like champagne and 10 years of courage finally set free. Winter settled over Seattle like a soft blanket. Ethan and Marcus planned a small spring wedding. Beach ceremony, close friends, no hiding. Robert and Liam became regular fixtures at Sunday brunch. Robert even brought his wife once, a quiet woman who hugged Ethan and whispered, "You gave me my family back." But growth is never linear. One Tuesday afternoon, a new patient walked in, mid-40s, corporate suit, clenched jaw. His intake form listed family estrangement as the reason for therapy. Halfway through the session, the man looked at the now prominent photo of Marcus on the desk and sneered, "You people are everywhere." Ethan felt the old flinch, then let it pass. "Tell me what you people means to you, Mr. Caldwell." The man's story spilled out. A daughter who had just come out as lesbian, a wife who sided with her, a church that threatened to revoke his membership. Ethan listened the way he had learned to listen, with the same patience he once needed himself. By the end of the hour, Mr. Caldwell was crying the same messy tears Robert once had. After the session, Ethan stood at the window, watching rain streak the glass. He realized the work never ended. Every bigot carried a wounded child inside. Every healed father became someone else's bridge. The label deviant still floated through the world, but it no longer stuck to him. He had outgrown it. Marcus picked him up after work, rain dripping from his umbrella. "Another one?" he asked, reading Ethan's face. Ethan nodded. "Another one." They drove home in comfortable silence, windshield wipers keeping time like a heartbeat. At home, Marcus pulled out a folder. Inside were printed tickets to Chicago, the city where Ethan and Tyler had once dreamed of a future. "Thought we could visit Tyler's grave," Marcus said softly. "Pay respects." then start our own chapter. Ethan's throat tightened. He had never gone back. Now, with Marcus beside him, the idea felt like healing instead of haunting. "I like that," he whispered. That night they danced in the living room to an old song Tyler used to love, slow and gentle. Two men who had learned that love could survive fists, rumors, oceans of prejudice, and even the long silence of father's regret. Spring arrived in a riot of cherry blossoms along Lake Washington. Ethan stood on the small stretch of sand at Golden Gardens Beach, barefoot in a linen suit, Marcus beside him in matching ivory. Their friends formed a loose circle. Robert and Liam front and center, Ethan's sister Becca holding their mother's hand via video call, even Ethan's father nodding stiffly from the back row. The officiant's words floated on the salt breeze. Love is not a secret to be kept. It is a light to be shared. When it was time for vows, Ethan spoke first. "I spent years fixing other people's broken pieces because I was afraid to look at my own. You taught me it's safe to be whole. Today I promise to keep choosing courage. With you for you, because of you." Marcus's eyes shone. "You showed me that real strength isn't hiding. It's standing in the sun. I promise to stand there with you, no matter how bright or how stormy." They kissed to applause and the distant cry of seagulls. Later, at the reception under a white tent, Robert raised a glass. "To the man who taught this stubborn old fool that tears aren't weakness. They're the beginning of being human." Liam lifted his own glass, grinning. "To the guy who made my dad cry, in a good way." Ethan laughed until his ribs hurt. He looked around at the faces, some once strangers, now family, and felt the full circle close. The boy from Ohio, who ran away from shame, had become the man who welcomed shame back to the table and watched it transform into something kinder. Months later, on a quiet evening, Ethan sat at his desk writing notes after the last session of the day. The photo of Marcus, now joined by their wedding picture, smiled back at him. His phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Liam got into college. Wants to study psychology. Says he wants to be like you." Ethan smiled and typed back, "Tell him the world needs more of us." He closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and stepped into the warm Seattle night. Somewhere out there, another father was clenching his fists, another son was hiding tears, another therapist was wondering if one conversation could matter. Ethan knew the answer now. It could. It did. Every single time. In the end, Ethan's story reminds us that the loudest prejudices often hide the deepest pain. The real victory isn't winning an argument or changing a law overnight. It's sitting across from someone who once wanted to hurt you and choosing empathy anyway. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be willing to cry, to listen, and to keep showing up as our whole selves. That's how hearts change. That's how families heal. And that's how one man's quiet courage can ripple farther than any scream ever could. Keep choosing the light, even when the dark feels safer. The world is waiting for your version of the truth.